What's up, everybody? Today we will be looking at Missouri, and Missouri is very intriguing because a year ago they were good but not great. They consistently beat the teams that they're supposed to beat, but they struggle to beat the teams that are above them in terms of tiers. As well as that, the returning production is not as much as it usually is at Missouri. They're going to have to rely on developmental and transfer pieces a lot, particularly at key positions. Think up front on defense and then at the skill positions on offense. Wide receiver is a massive question. Quarterback's a massive question. And then even the offensive line has some questions. But there's a clear star in Ahmad Hardy that is on this roster. So for exactly what do they return? They do not return a ton. You see they are 76th overall in returning production, 107th on defense, and 51st on offense. They do get back their best player, an Ahmad Hardy, which is absolutely massive because he was a 1,600-yard rusher a year ago. And that's with an offense that wasn't remarkably explosive. And good defenses really could key in on him and just do everything in their power to stop him, which was the reason why I think the ceiling at Missouri a year ago was what it was. When you look to defense, you lose your best edge rusher, which really hurts, especially in the Southeastern Conference, because if you really want to compete for a national title in this conference, you have to, and I mean you have to be able to get to the passer. It just makes the entire defense run. It's like oil in a machine. But if they are able to replace that in other ways, keep preferably in developmental pieces, because I do worry if they go to the transfer portal that they get guys who are really talented but necessarily don't have the most experience. And we'll get to that here in a second. But in terms of returning production, I'm pretty worried, particularly at the wide receiver position and on defense, because they just lost so much. In terms of how will they replace the production that they did lose, the transfer portal is exactly where Missouri went to go look. And we'll start at quarterback because it is the most important position, and it is my biggest question for Missouri is quarterback and wide receiver. They both addressed it by going out and getting Ole Miss guys in Austin Simmons and Lee respectfully. And my whole thing is Austin Simmons a year ago didn't necessarily have the runway due to the injury and Trinidad Chambliss just looking so well to really have a good read on exactly what he could be. Lee, I think, will be a very big impact player on Missouri. I think right now he's probably wide receiver one. I would be shocked if he's not. But then for everything else in the portal where they need to look to add depth, they went out and got guys who didn't pan out at Power 4 schools, which I don't love. I would much rather have them take the Indiana approach where they go out and they buy 23-year-olds from places like Southern Miss, guys who are good on teams like Southern Miss and those lower level G6s, rather than going out and getting people that quite frankly just weren't going to play at places like even Florida State or Georgia or things of that nature. I would have rather seen them go to the G6 ranks, maybe even the FCS, to go get those talent pieces. Now, they do get the very, once again, highly rated recruit from Baylor, who didn't necessarily play a ton a year ago in Morgan. He's the guy who's going to have to come in and make up for Damon Wilson's departure. Otherwise, I don't see how Missouri is going to be able to get the adequate pressure on the quarterback that they're going to need if they want to be successful in the SEC. But overall, this transfer portal is very interesting because they do bring in a lot of guys, and they bring in a lot of guys who are very athletic, who are SEC-type players, but they necessarily haven't lived up to their true potential. And I think Eli Drinkwitz is kind of taking a bet on himself that he can develop these guys and that they just weren't getting properly utilized or they're getting lost in the depth chart at some of these other programs. Only time will tell if that's accurate, but I think they've addressed a lot of positions through the portal, which can be good, it can be bad. Only time will tell right now, just with the way that they went about doing it, going and getting guys that were stuck on deep in the depth chart at other programs and weren't going to play. I'm a little more worried than I am optimistic. So overall, what will Missouri look like next year? Right now, the win total is at 7.5. Well, let's look at the schedule first of all. Texas, Georgia, Oklahoma, Ole Miss. I think those are just teams that are significantly better. They all have college football playoff, most of them national championship aspirations. Those are going to be really tough games for Missouri. And the thing that's so easy about Missouri is they beat who they're supposed to beat and lose to who they're supposed to lose to. It is a very predictable team under Eli Drinkwitz, which is good, but it also is obviously bad. Now let's look at some games that I think will be very 50-50, and that'd be Florida and Texas A&M. Texas A&M, I'm not incredibly high on a year ago. I'll make a video about them a little bit later. And Florida, I obviously made the video on yesterday. Those are two teams that could absolutely beat Missouri, but I also wouldn't be shocked if Missouri gets the win. I think they'd split those. So right there, that has you at 5 losses, which means 7-5 would be the under. So right now I'm leaning towards the under. So how do they overachieve? First of all, you have to hit up front. On the offensive line and the defensive line, it controls everything. Austin Simmons obviously has to be a playmaker. And then on the outside, Missouri has to have vertical threats. I'm not saying a guy at the caliber of Luther Burden, but they need guys who can be more consistent playmakers. Because the problem is when you line up against a Texas, a Georgia, an Oklahoma, they're going to stack the box and stop Ahmad Hardy every single time. Maybe he gets a couple. He will get his, but he will not play good enough if he has to play by himself to where he could go out and legitimately beat one of those teams, which is what you're going to have to do if you want to, first of all, hit the over in terms of win total, or if you have a lot higher aspirations talking college football playoff, talking SEC title, you're going to need some explosive play on the offense. And then on the defense, they just lost so much. They're in the 100s in terms of returning production. You need the transfer from Baylor and guys like him to hit. And you need that talent that Eli Drinkwitz is betting on himself for being able to develop. Those guys got to hit as well. I think it's going to take a lot. Right now, I like them as a bowl team for sure. I like them at 6 or 7 wins, but I do think that under will hit. The schedule's tough. Not a ton of returning production. And although the transfer portal looks fine, I'm not optimistic about it enough. And Eli Drinkwitz is a very consistent coach. He wins who he's supposed to beat, and he loses to who he's supposed to lose to. That's all for Missouri. If you guys are new here, subscribe, drop likes, and let me know what you guys think in the comments. I'm intrigued to see what all your opinions on Missouri are.